Hey, welcome to Whitefields Community Church Sermon Extra. It's great to have you with us again. This week I'm here with Pastor Nick Cady, who is the pastor of Whitefields Community Church here in Longmont, Colorado. And we are starting, or have started, a new series in the books of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. And we've called this series Upside Down. And it comes from Acts chapter 17 as the church there is described. These people, you've turned this world upside down. And of course, the Thessalonian church was kind of started in that turmoil. And Paul was not able to stay there very long. And 3 weeks later, he was, kicked out and had to flee for his life. But 1 Thessalonians, this is the report back that Paul gets from Timothy that, hey, things are going well. And so we are, diving into those two books, and we look forward to going through that. And we hope you join us on this journey as we go through this subject upside down. And so one of the feedback that we got from Sunday's sermon is something you mentioned about the fact that Paul wasn't even supposed to even go to Thessalonica. He was supposed to go somewhere else, but that door was closed. And so something you had discussions with people after church.
I talked to some people who were saying, that's their exact experience right now, that they were planning on doing some things and they were good things. That's what I think strikes me about this. It's not like, Paul wasn't going to commit fraud or rob a bank or sell drugs. He was going to plant churches and spread the gospel. Why would God not support him in that? And the answer was because God actually had a different way for him to go. But of course, now we look at it and we're like, oh yeah, obviously, great. Amazing things happen with the gospel coming to Europe. Clearly that's God. But at the time, you got to remember, we don't know how long this period lasted. It could have been a couple weeks, could have been a couple months of Paul being in limbo, wanting to do things and just running into a wall, just closed doors, no opportunity to do what he wants to do. And what, I'm sure he didn't just make those plans on his own. Probably he prayed about it and thought about it and strategized. And he was convinced that this is the right way to go. And then he tries to do it and it doesn't work out. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Maybe they want something and something that is good. I've talked to lots of people through the years who wanted to be married or wanted to have kids. And they say, hey, look, I have a good desire. Why would God not give it to me? I don't understand. And what we see with Paul is that we have the benefit of looking at the whole story. We can see the beginning and the end. We see what all happened. And, when you're going through those things, you don't have that benefit. But we have the scriptures to look at where we can say, well, here's an example of that. Anyway, I think it just gives us so much confidence to say, wow, in the midst of what I'm going through, if I'm facing frustration, disappointment, discouragement, because something I wanted is not working out, I can look at that and say, well, look at what God did. It was bigger, more significant, greater than what Paul himself had in mind. And I believe that the character of God, that is how he works. And I've experienced that in my life, and I think you have too, where it's so I told a story, I kind of joked yesterday, I was trying to go to Hawaii, but I ended up in Longmont, which is also good. Well, it's not actually true, but what is true is that the way I ended up in Hungary was that Hungary wasn't even on my radar. For years, I had been interested in Ukraine, and the reason for that is because my family, my grandparents and things like that, they're from Ukraine. And so I was interested. The person who helped me, really make a commitment to the Lord was Russian. There were a lot of Russians, Ukrainians in the area where I grew up. And so I was really interested in Ukraine. And so I went and I was pursuing kind of some opportunities in Ukraine with church plants and just wanting to serve and help and really wanted to go. And those doors just closed. And at the same time, another door opened up to go to Hungary. And so what I said was, hey, look, I'll go to Hungary for 8 months. And then I'll either go to Ukraine or I'll do something else. But God used that, just, hey, take this next step, go to Hungary, even though it was never on my radar to begin with. But I went to Hungary and it was just the greatest blessing. I'm so glad I went there. I met my wife, 2 churches were started. We have our kids were born there. We adopted in Hungary. So many wonderful things and friends, and I can't imagine it having ever gone any differently. So I'm just thankful for that. But what's your story?
Well, when I felt the Lord calling me to go to full-time ministry, plan A was to go to university and get a piece of paper that said I was qualified for full-time ministry. Well, plan A didn't work out. Plan B was then to go to Poland as a missionary, and plan B didn't work out, and I ended up plan C, going to Hungary, to Debrecen. I didn't know anybody. Arrived there, didn't know the language or anything like that. But yeah, same as you, I couldn't imagine it ever being any different. I mean, God did way above what I could have ever thought or hoped or even dreamed of, so it just kind of went from plan A to plan B, and if there was plan D, I probably would have done that too, so and I think that's the point of what Paul was, what Paul is talking about is that what was he about? He was about the gospel. And if plan A doesn't work out, hey, guess what? The people in plan B most likely need to hear the gospel. It's like, oh no, I can't go here because they already, everybody needs to hear the gospel. And I know that's what drove me. I felt like God's calling me to full-time ministry, to be a part of church planning and being a part of church ministry, and for the furtherance of the gospel. So wherever that was going to work out, in a sense. I mean, but yeah, we see the world, as not as God sees it. We just see day to day, hour to hour, and we only fathom what our minds can conceive. But His plans, of course, are higher than our plans.
How long did you think you would stay in Hungary when you first went?
6 months.
Really?
Yeah,
6 months. Wow.
Yeah, I had a 6-month plan, and then I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
So I went to Hungary with no money.
Yeah.
I had my guitar and my backpack. That was it. I had no way of, no support, no nothing. So 6 months was what I planned. But 20-some years later, it was still working out. So
it's a good place to get stuck. That's what I always tell people. Like, it somehow has a way of drawing you in and keeping you there, but in the most wonderful way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So if plan A doesn't work out, hey, just go with plan B or plan C. But, if your desire is to preach the gospel, God's going to find a place for you to do that. And I think you're going to get that fulfillment on, whatever level that you need to get that as well, and whatever skill God has for you.
Well, I think that's a good point, because, I remember thinking too, hey, if Hungary doesn't work out, well, then I'll just stay in Colorado, but I'm still going to, preach the gospel and serve the Lord in whatever capacity. So
totally, yeah. And one of the things that you talked about was the reputation of the Thessalonians, and just the fact that 300, Archaea, is that what it is? Achaia. It's like 300 kilometers, miles south of Thessalonica, that they had heard of the reputation of what God was doing among the Thessalonians. That was a pretty amazing fact.
Yeah. And Paul makes a big point about that, hey, your reputation as people who have turned from idols to the living God, has spread all over this whole area, and people know about you. They hear good things, and it's this testimony. I thought that was incredible. I think that sometimes people can have the attitude of hey, I only answer to God, and I don't care what other people think about me, and I don't need to worry about how other people perceive me, because it's just about me and God. I perform for an audience of one. And I think there's a degree to which that attitude is needed in some instances. But I think if you look throughout the Bible, you're going to find a lot of focus on, hey, he says there, live worthy in chapter 2, as I prepare, he says, live worthy of the God who called you. Worry about your reputation. You should care about what other people think about you, because your reputation isn't just about you. When you become a Christian, your reputation also becomes your testimony. We call it your witness, right? And you want that to be powerful. And one of the things I always say to people, because, like anybody else, I have opinions about lots of things. But the one thing I want to be known for, I want to be known for what I call the controversy of the gospel. There's so many controversies out there, so many things that people talk about and discuss. And you know what? The only one I want to be known for, my reputation, I want it to be about the gospel.
And we're ambassadors, right? Yeah. I mean, we are basically ambassadors of the gospel, and an ambassador represents the will and represents the message of the one who sent him, and it's important that we represent that in a proper and due fashion, for the world around us. So it is important that the ambassador's not doing weird things that don't reflect well on the one who has sent him. So that's definitely, I felt that was quite an interesting, 300 miles in that time, I mean, in our day and age, is our reputation known 300 miles?
Right, like 300 miles is still a long way.
That's a long way even today.
I think of Grand Junction and do people in Grand Junction know about the fact that I've turned from idols to living God? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So that's a really, in that day and age, that was an amazing fact.
I think in our day and age too, we live in an era where everyone has a platform of some kind, right? Like if you have a Facebook page, if you have an Instagram account, if you have a Twitter account, that is a platform in which you are kind of, back in the day, there were a lot of people who didn't have any platforms, and now we all have a platform. And so the thing is this: how are you using your platform? And what reputation are you creating through the platform that you have? Because all of us nowadays have one because of the internet.
Yeah, no, that is such an important thought, and a lot of exciting things coming up in the book of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, and these two small books, but they're jam packed with a lot of theology, a lot of valuable lessons, and churches that church is born out of turmoil, and completely Paul's going to bring all these things that upside down ideas. They're going to turn, may hopefully turn your life right side up if they're things that you're dealing with. And so come on this journey with us. We look forward to going on it with you. And hey, Facebook, we're up there, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify. If you're not subscribed to our podcast yet, you can do that and get the content, and it'll notify you when the newest episode is up there. And so we look forward to seeing you next week. God bless.